Cool, cool, cool. People are arriving through the sunny, chill morning. Not as cold as the last couple of foggy ones. Kind of nice today. Shush, let's mute that thing. Let's hide this thing away. As we get this live stream working, let's get the screen the right size for the class. Let's not forget to log into Ralph's PCC account so we can edit course materials that might need a small edit. And I know we're going to do that, so because that's part of our discussion as we get going. No thanks. All right, cool. That works. This works. Let's share a screen. Things appear to be set up properly. People are here in the room. People are there in the Zoom. Welcome, AIM. Welcome, Alex. Welcome, Nerys. Good sized groups, both outside the room in comfortable, warm places, I'm hoping, and here in this warm place that is as comfortable as can be for a PCC place. If you do need support with your personal comfort at PCC, I don't know if it's still Stephanie who does all the furniture stuff for disability services, but she will guarantee you're comfortable. If you need a different table or a different chair, go talk to disability. They will set you up. Stephanie is a badass, and the people who support her in that work, who work for like facilities and move furniture around or set up rooms, like my pal Wayne, the punk rocker, they're all cool. They'll help you out. Of course, if you're at home in the Zoom world, you just got to get a comfortable chair for yourself. You're stuck. You got to go. I got to upgrade. I don't have a good one right now. I'm the bad chair role model for Zoom. All right, team, where are we? Desire to learn, bright space. Our class. Student view, so it looks good instead of a big mess. Boom. We're here at 3 minutes past the hour. A few more folks are joining us. Welcome, welcome, Olivia. Welcome. Who else have I not welcomed? I think I welcomed everybody. If you didn't hear your welcome, it's just because people were talking, and that was cool. That was great. Let's see. There's one more, a couple things set up. Oh, this is great. This is a good looking day for statistics class. Ooh. Yes, Matilda?
I know that Monday's a holiday, but we also said that we would talk about it. Are we meeting or not?
Great question. All right, we have a great question to start class, and there's a couple of interesting things happening today and in the future. So let's come together. So all of the thoughtful discussions that you've been having with your neighbors, return to them during the next break, because they're good conversations, but let's all talk together so I can hear what I say and everybody in the room can hear it too. Awesome. Welcome, welcome, welcome again. There's a great question up here in the front. Hey, Ralph, next Monday is a holiday. True, it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. That's a day off. No class at all. We don't meet. I hope that you'll find something positive to do in your community to fight the ongoing injustices of anti-Black and every other form of racism, because they suck and they got to stop. And that's on us as human beings, whether we're 52 or 15 years old. There's a lot of work to do. So organize together with people you care about, and you can fight it. You can fight for a better world where people truly care about each other and live the values that you've described to me. Yeah, sound good? So yeah, no class next Monday. Important announcement. Okay, bonus announcement, and it's a scheduled one that's just a funky one. I am, as you might know from our various discussions, a parent, and I have a little boy who goes to 3rd grade at the Portland Public Schools system. They have just random days off, and the way that affects our class is if he's off on a day when he wakes up at my house, unless I cannot be with him, I should give my co-parent that school day, as she will for me if he wakes up at her house that day. It's just half the days for both of us. So we've got one of those coming up. So we're going to have a fully remote class. Let me make sure it's on the schedule, and I'll remind all of us repeatedly before it arrives. So we will have one fully remote class meeting. Let's gaze into the future. Content, schedule. And I just learned about it because I was trying to schedule a pediatrician's appointment the other day. They said, hey, there's no school the 27th or the 28th. And I was like, huh? So luckily, some smart person reminded me that I should look at the calendar in more depth for my son this next quarter, because they're all public. But this class meeting, Monday, the 27th, how do we, let's just go remote.
That mean, like.
Zoom, yeah. Let's just call it Zoom, right? Zoom only, right? So you still, if being on campus is the best for you as far as like where you are during this time of your day. Wait, did I type it in the wrong square? Hold on, I want it there. Oh, let me just try again. Yeah, Zoom only on the 27th. That's the one. So I'll just make this one a fun color, like, how about it? Let's make it warning color, like light yellow, and then Zoom only. We'll make that little thing in like, what, bright blue? So, oh, no. The letters bright blue, so they jump off the page at us, right?
Gotta do the background.
Like that? Zoom only, like that?
Yeah.
Does that sort of jump out at some people's eyes better than nothing as far as a emphasis? But I'll remind us, we're gonna meet again, not this coming Monday again, no class, college is closed. We're not supposed to be at work at all, though some of us will try to catch up on grading and feedback as needed. And of course, you all can do what you want with your day as students, working on whatever you need to. We just won't be here. On the Zoom only day, you can either stay home and just be in a comfortable, quiet place. If you're on campus, you can, there's the easiest option is to roll over to the library about a few minutes before class and say, I need a private Zoom room. You might even be able to contact them in advance if you want to set one up to share with a couple of people, like with your neighbors. If you're on campus types, you could set up a library Zoom room. Or since Ian teaches right before our class and our class is not locked, what I'm about to say is not allowed, but no one will care if it happens. You could just come here. Any one of you could come up to the front, log into the Zoom space, and turn on the speakers so it works well. Turn on the projector if you feel like that's an option that might work for you on that Zoom only class day. If you want to be here anyway, talk to me today or Wednesday, and I'll make sure you know where all the buttons are for volume and getting the projector correct. There's just like 2 things that can go wrong setting it up that I've done enough times to know to warn people. It's because of this little box has a couple of annoying settings that most of us aren't familiar with, right? Okay, so sound pretty good. Zoom only on the 27th. I think that's the only time that's going to happen, but I need to double check. And then the bonus one is the news from me this week with my kid. Yesterday, he came home sick from school. I'm feeling well. I think he might have started to catch his whatever COVID negative bug he has caught. Probably started to catch it Sunday is when I thought, is he a little worn? But he was in such good spirits. I thought he was just snuggled in the sheets and the blankies. But then yesterday, he came home from school with a pretty sore throat, developed a fever over the course of the evening, had a tough sleep overnight. So he's home. So, who knows? Maybe next Wednesday I'll be sick too, right? If I get sick, I'll send you an email saying class is remote, right? I'm not going to cancel class for my illness, but I can definitely stay home and teach and save my germs. If I'm alive, sickly, fevered, sore-throated, runny-nosed guy, I don't want to come in here with y'all and sicken you. I'm physically sicken you. I like to sicken you academically, your minds, poison your mind. I mean, inform your minds with academic learning, right? Opposite. It's a potion, not a poison. See what I mean though? So look out for news. Always be checking your PCC email. Maybe first thing when you wake up on class days this quarter is a great idea, because you never know when an instructor might send you a note saying, hey, it's remote only today. And I would type up all those reminders about the library and the classroom, but better to have those in your head already to think about the best option for you for those days when we do go fully remote, whether it's due to my family responsibilities or my middle-aged health situation. Yeah. Mellow, good. And of course, if you're ever getting sick, feeling that sore throat catching you or a fever, please stay home. Please take the time to rest and heal. And if you want to participate in our class, distance-wise, you've got Zoom for the live sessions, and of course, you've got the YouTube sessions. If your brain is foggy and feverish, don't try to concentrate on this stuff. Just let your brain rest until it feels good, and then go to our YouTube playlist and sort of catch up at your own speed, skipping all the bad jokes and boring parts of the discussions to get to the good stuff. Right? Sound good? Yeah. All right. That's the big updates. Any questions about anything? Homework, the course, we're still settling in here in week 2.
There's one more question. Is there one? 1.4, and it's like describe the graph, and it, like, when I look at what the answer key is, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But if we could do like a couple more of those in class, I would appreciate that, because I don't
Yeah.
really read all the time.
Let's gaze in upon there. You said section 1.4, right? Wait, PDF style is, where did you go? PDF or?
PDF.
Okay, let me go PDF too. So I'm just going right where you're telling me. Oh, tired brain. Look at me. I didn't get quite enough sleep because my kid was like, snotty and snory. And he woke up early to say, ouch. I had an extra hour of reading Calvin and Hobbes this morning at 6 a.m. So I'm a little, where am I going? Content, PDF text. Boom, section 1.4 homework question coming our way. The homework in 1.4 is right before the stuff in the next section. Internet use and expectancy.
I was just curious if we could do like a couple more of the like describing the relationship, because I understood this one, but because I remember we did one that was positive in class. And it wasn't, I don't really remember the other ones.
Okay, a good question. I wish there was like another example, like right on the same page to give us a bonus. Let me just, maybe I'm gonna roll up into the section to see if there's one that just we haven't talked about before. Lots of samplings, pictures that we saw in our slideshow. Oh, we're not seeing another fresh new scatter plot for our eyeballs right here in my scanning. Okay. Well, do you mind if I just talk about this one and kind of use it as an example for your question? Because and if I'm getting your question right, when they say describe the relationship, really, what do they mean? Like what are they actually asking us? Because of course you can go look and see how they answer, but what were they thinking about to get them there? Right? Like what were the actual topics there? Let's talk about it. And we'll use this example. I'm going to take a screen snip of it and throw it into our class notes too, so we can keep these notes somewhere rather than lose them in the world of the internet. Come on, Snippy. There you go. No, please give me the full dang old snip. Oh, that's great. Classy, Snippy. Then let me go to our class notes doc where we can not lose what we're thinking about. That lives in content, course materials, class notes, a little place that's good to keep anytime we have discussions like this, so my notes don't get lost in the mists of time. I'm in the correct place. Can I edit? Yeah, it's working. Today is Wednesday, January 15th. I'll always, note when discussions happened in here. And then it'll be homework. Sorry, 1.4 homework exercise. It was 1, 2, oh, is that right? I'll find out when I paste it, right? Oh, 1, 2, 1, great. Cool. And I'll make that. Oh, do people know, have you ever had a cool friend like my friend Alex in your life? Look at my little Google Doc. Check out what's interesting about it that's different than most Google Docs that people open up. That big 14,071 class notes, the title there. I didn't pick how big that is and crank it up with font size. I just went to this little selector and picked title, right? I didn't choose at all to make Wednesday, Jan 5, 15, sorry, that size. I just went up here for heading 1. And like this exercise, one homework exercise and its number and its section. I'm going to grab those and go down to the next one, heading 2. Why, Ralph? Why would you do such a thing? Why wouldn't you just make them bold or just adjust their text size? Does anybody know? Yeah, there's this cool thing when you these documents sort things out automatically. If you use these settings for headings and you nest things thoughtfully and you get used to them, you get these automatic little guides through your document. If you have a large document with lots of notes, if you use headings and stuff, it sorts out your notes with links in the document like that. Bonus level, if you want to access them or want other people to be able to access them quickly, you can insert in any word processing program that does these kinds of titles and headings. All the way at the bottom of this long menu is table of contents. And the third one, those bright blue table of contents, those are little links. So if this document gets really long, you'll never have to search through it to find something as long as the labels are good enough. And you can always update this when you add more headings to increase the length of the list of links. It's like how I made our course syllabus to have those nice links at the beginning. Really great for accessibilities. It works with screen readers. It's just great. It's a great way to make documents, and it reduces the number of graphical design decisions you have to think about. You can just trust, whatever. Some computer. All right. Anyway, that's just a helpful aside for life, for those who might like it. Back to this one. Describe the relationship between life expectancy and percentage of internet users. What do they mean, right? Let's just get into that right away. Yeah, but true. And how? Like, how do we describe it? Let me just give you a few. Let me give you a few things that statisticians want from you to describe it, and then hold on to your good thought, and then see how it relates to what the nerds want, right? Because of course, any of us could look at the graph and start just describing it thoughtfully as graph readers. But describe the relationship for statistics textbook types means consider a couple of things. Let's make that let's make it a bullet instead of a number, because these aren't really in an order. Means consider, well, is it positive or negative? So is there generally do higher values for one variable generally relate to higher values for the other, or vice versa, or higher to lower, which is a negative relationship. So positive or negative relationship. That's just generally, doesn't have to be true for every pair of every pair of values. Also, is the relationship got a ow, sorry, hold on. Good old tinnitus. Ear protection, folks. Ear protection. Trust me, it's good. Ear protection. Because then you don't get the ding when you're. In any case, the other one is, does it have a descriptive pattern to it? And here in stats, the pattern we care about is if it looks linear or not. Linear relationship. So if it generally seems like if you're going to draw, if you're going to try to capture the general relationship starting through the middle of the cloud, as you trace through the center, do you get something that's similar to a straight line? So linear relationship, kind of yes or no. There's lots of ways it cannot be linear. You could have one curve in a relationship, kind of like this one's not linear. You could have a pattern that repeats, like a kind of a wave pattern, or quick growth is called exponential growth. This is slow growth. It's called what is that called? That's like the graph of a square root. So, but linear relationship, just really yes or no. So linear or non-linear. Oh, and is there a predictive? Is it predictive? Are you confident you can make predictions here? Is there correlation? Correlation. That's strong or weak ability to make predictions. Like that. So correlation or association or dependence, those three words mean the same thing to statisticians, even though they really don't feel the same in daily life. So maybe I'll add dependence and association there. All of those describe that I could probably make predictions if there's a strong correlation, whether or not there's causation between the two variables.
So Google Docs and things where I can't find those. Am I on? Am I?
Can I try to troubleshoot that on the break?
Yeah, sorry.
Great. Yeah, it's a great question because yeah, whenever the internet is annoying or it's hard to access things, always let me know. But for like checking something out, I got to come look at your screen. But yeah, we'll check on the break. So just follow along up here as best as it works. But of course, we'll do better after the break. Yeah, no, great question. And those are the three questions right there, Liv. So those are the ones that when you look in the back of the book, you'll usually see words like it's nonlinear, positive, and weak. Like they'll give those kinds of descriptions. And that's what you'll see in the back of the text. Let's go check. I want to go see if I'm right compared to the textbook. Back into the PDF for me. Here I go. Content. Text. PDF. It's a pretty quick journey now that I know where I'm going. Clean up the mess. Remember, our text is a lovable, searchable PDF, so you can always use the table of contents as links to travel through it quickly, rather than scrolling through all the pages, like people my age tend to do. If we don't know those are links, it's not obvious. But then there we are, internet use and life expectancy. Also, the problem number, like 121 right there, is a link to the associated solution on that page near the back of the book. Again, no reason to scroll through the PDF or to look up the page. Just tap on the number. Look there, positive, nonlinear, somewhat strong. See, there's the three questions. Can you make a prediction? Somewhat strong, sure. Is it a linear graph? Nope, it's not. So it's nonlinear. And do higher values for one variable generally have correlation to higher values for the other? Yes, indeed they do, as we can see right there in the picture. Elizabeth, question?
Yeah, so in the homework, it says 1.3, 1.5, 1.7, 1.9, and 1.11. Where is that in the PDF?
Great question. So let's go back. So you're looking at coursework, assignments. That assignment's got to be what, the 1.3 assignment? Is that right?
Or 1.2. The one due, yes.
Wait, which one? Sorry, the one due
Yeah, the
today?
1.2.
Great, 1.2 assignment. So yeah, still good questions about navigating these things. Good question. You're certainly not alone. When you're looking at these PDF exercises, 1.3, 1.5, 1.7, 1.9, and 1.11, they're in section 1.2 as the assignment only got a dash because of annoying restrictions of the internet.
But it's just only 1.2.
They're all in 1.2,
Okay.
right? And so when we go back to the PDF version to find them, hey, PDF, we're back again. Again, my style is I go down to the table of contents. Here's section 1.2. If I haven't read it yet, maybe I want to read stuff too, or just scan it to double check nothing looks unfamiliar. Anything unfamiliar, I'll stop and read about. A medium length section. But at the bottom of every section is the section summary. So that's kind of your tip that you've reached the end of the stuff to read. You'll see a bright red line. That's where the exercises live, and there's 1.3. Yeah, so that air pollution and birth outcomes study components questions, the first one assigned, and it's just called number 1 on the web page version. That's why we have 2 lists, because the problem numbers in the PDF or the printed text run all the way through the chapter. So there was first exercise and second exercise of chapter 1 were in the first section of the chapter, and here's the third exercise in chapter 1. And the fourth exercise in chapter 1. So I never read them as decimal numbers. I don't say 1.3. I say third exercise in chapter 1, because I've looked at the book enough to know what it means. Most folks say 1.3. Yeah, great question. And then they're just all here. I think 1.11 might even be the last. Yeah, it's just all the odd ones in that section. So you have access to all the solutions. Double reminder, If you're using the PDF on any device that's got a mouse, you can just select the problem number itself, the exercise number, to shift back and see what the authors think back in the exercise solutions chunk of the PDF. Pretty cool. Yeah. Hey, airports. People love airports. I was kidding. People hate airports. They're the worst. Oh my goodness, what happened? Why? Why? Oh, I know there's some reasons why. There's some good reasons why. They're complicated too. Okay, any other good homework questions or good ideas to share about stuff you've been working on lately? Great, and all the great questions are there to ask every class. Remember, if a good question arises in your mind that you have like before class meets, like, and you're on campus at like between 9:30 and 10:30, what should you do? Yeah, just go to the math department. I'll be there hanging out between 9:30 and 10:30 nearly every class day. If my kid's sick, maybe I won't be there like today. Actually, I got here 10 minutes before class because I had to get my kid, medicined into his mom's house. But usually I'll be over there at 9:30. So if you're on campus and you want to talk through some questions or talk about some issues in the class, just stop by or Zoom on in if you're off campus and it works for you if you're in the Zoom world. Just Zoom in before class and you can ask me lots of questions. Right? And hey, look, let's all celebrate. Our class notes have begun. Never mind. Rounds of applause are not popular in college classrooms. I'm never going to give up trying. Yeah, all right, let's go. Class notes, let's go. Let's go, class notes. That's a level too far. I know, that's bad. Okay, team, the plan for the day. We've already got our schedule open. I know the plan. We're going to talk about the fifth and last section of chapter 1, more details about how experiments work in lots of different research settings. And then we're going to put some time into working on our first chunk of our lab with the bonus of discussing some lab guidelines right beforehand because we skipped that, but it fits in perfectly. It's just talking about some of the basic expectations. Ready to go? Let's go. We'll start with the 1.5. Let's go to the slides. Here I go. I'm in content in the old D2L, heading on down to the slides module. Just sliding on down to the 5th sections slideshow. It's actually the 6th slideshow though. Tricky. Right, we mentioned last class the difference between observational studies and experiments. What is it?
Experiment?
Yeah, what's the difference? What do researchers do in an experiment that they never do in an observational study?
They assign treatment.
Yeah, in an experiment, researchers have control over something, usually in the form of assigning some kind of treatment to some of their subjects or all of their subjects if there's multiple treatments or say control levels to assign. They get to control the explanatory variable. Cool. All right, team. There's some let's talk about this idea called blocking. I mentioned that it exists last class and said we'll talk about it next class. So here we are. Here's an experiment whose goal is to design an experiment. Here's an example. The goal of these researchers is to design an experiment to investigate if energy gel, like this GA pictured on the left, helps people run faster. Or maybe it's pronounced goo. Or maybe it's GU. I'm going to use all three. Okay, cool. People might want to run faster. They might want to have a little gel-based quick burst of antioxidants and amino acids, and they might hope that that would give them a little burst of athletic energy and increase their running speed. Treatment, kind of obvious. Let's go with energy gel. So we're going to give some energy gel to some runners to see what it does. Control, that's The other level would be, well, let's have some other runners in our study who do not get energy gel. Oh. There's two ways to read that no energy gel. Want me to show you the two? They're kind of cool. It depends on if you work at the GA factory or not. If you work at the GA factory, you could probably make, get it? No energy gel. Like you could produce vanilla bean flavored gel that tastes good, but doesn't have the antioxidants and amino acids that are meant to improve people's athletic, meant to give that burst of energy, right? So you could just make a little bag of vanilla non-energy goo. What's that? I mean, that's if you have control of the factory. That's probably unlikely. I'm more willing to bet that researchers in this case just would say, hey, we're not the factory. We just want to learn. So some people just won't get energy gel. You'd probably give everybody some, I don't know, maybe give all the runners in your study similar nutritional advice and make sure they're all hydrated so that they have some baseline nutrition that's comparable before they get that. You? Yeah, one of those, maybe. Okay, there's suspicion that energy gel could affect professional and amateur athletes differently. Therefore, researchers are going to block for pro status. Reasonable suspicion? Any nutritionists in the room or athletes? I guess I'll have to ask my co-parent. She's a nutritionist. But there might be reasons for that. There's also another reason to block for pro status that I think will be clear once we describe how blocking works. You want to make sure that you separate professional and amateur athletes in your sample. Just because professional athletes are usually going to be better runners, right? They're going to run lots faster because they're professional athletes. They're stronger, more agile. They've been training with coaches and stuff for possibly since they were small children in some cases, right? And then you randomly assign the pro athletes to both treatment and control groups. So half your professionals get energy gel, the other half get no energy gel. And then, of course, among the amateur athletes, you also assign half of them energy gel, the other half no energy gel. And then in both of those two really different groups of people athletically, you'll get to see the relative effects or lack of effect of energy gel on their running speeds or anything else you want to measure in the experiment. See how it works? Yeah. So blocking lets researchers control for any effect of pro-amateur status. And see why that might be a great idea here? Is it clear, or do you want me to like, any reasons that would be good? Yeah, Chanel?
Like it'll be skewed one way.
Well, what'll mess it up?
Like having the pro athletes in the study.
Yeah, right. So if you have, like, I'm imagining it this way. There's many, if you're just going to go grab a random sample of human beings who want to run, I'm starting to suspect whoever made these slides originally had just started running recently because now you have two running ideas here to study. But let's say you're working at Duke University where our textbook was born. That's a large university that has really high-level college athletic programs, basketball, football, both for men and women. Great athletics there. So you could have like professional level athletes right at school. But if you took a random sample of like Duke students, you're going to have tons of people who are just, all across the athletic range. And you'll have in that sample a smaller group of folks who are involved in these professional level college athletics who, should be paid professional wages when the NCAA makes billions of dollars from their hard work. In any case, if you just randomly assign the members of your sample to treatment and control, and you just happened to put noticeably more than half of the professional level athletes into either group, it's going to badly skew the results. It'll make the control look faster if there's lots of very fast athletes in that group, or it'll make the treatment look incredibly effective if you have too many relatively too many professionals in that group. It could badly skew the results either direction just from bad luck. Because if that effect hits things in any other than half and half way, bad. So the blocking, boom, that issue's gone. You now no longer have to worry about that happening. You can see the effect, if there is any, on both groups separately without the confounding factor of high-level athletic coaching and experience, right? High level, just much level is what I mean, not high, it's not above amateurs, it's just different. Lots more experience in coaching, right? Okay, sorry, Chanel and I answered the question, why is this important? So makes sense to avoid just bad judgments based on ignoring confounding factors. Can you think of other variables that researchers might block for? Especially if this was not like in a college setting where everybody's between age about, like at Duke University, it's like 18 to mid-20s is the vast majority of people. But what if this was among like all people who might want to run a broader population? What other variables can affect people's, I don't know, running speed or nutrition absorption or both, right? What could confound stuff in this study?
Maybe like health problems,
Just a little louder, sorry.
like health problems.
Yeah, general health. So like if someone has
Like
any kind of digestive issue, right? That's going to affect how well GU works for them. Good, good.
How long they've been running.
Yeah, experience, yeah, running experience. So there's many more levels than professional and amateur, right? So a brand new runner, their running speed is going to be increasing quickly as they get into running, while an experienced runner's probably got a pretty set baseline speed, very different. So you'd probably want to sort them out. Liv?
It's kind of like this I'm saying, but I was gonna say, they're kind of trying to do this by just doing the amateur versus pro, but instead of doing that, they could just do by like their time, like have them time themselves and just do it by speed.
Baseline, like just kind of look at their
Yeah, like,
baseline
what's your mile
speeds.
time?
And you can kind of sort them out into just like an ordinal thing, like people who are very slow because they're slower than a certain speed. Medium slow, people who run like as fast as I might jog when I'm regularly jogging. Everybody is passing me who's also jogging when I'm jogging. Those people who are passing me and then the fast people, right? So yeah, you can sort things out that way.
Just because there might be an amateur who's really fast.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to be a professional to be a really good runner. It's true. So yeah, there's one more I'm thinking of. Anybody else got one other one? That was it. I was thinking of age. Elizabeth's comment kind of reflects that because digestive ability, all of our body systems, degrade as we age. It's part of the cycle of life. So elders are going to probably get less out of a thing of guh. Also, elderly people are just, as their knees and thighs and stuff age, their running ability changes, and many become walkers who were runners in their youth, like my dad. So yeah, tons of things, and depending on how big your sample is, how diverse it is, researchers would be as thoughtful as they needed to be to block out all the variables they're curious about. It's kind of nice because just as long as you're asking people the questions that you might be curious about in your setup, blocking isn't that hard to do. It's just a matter of just slightly complicates the setup of the experiment a little bit. The bigger your sample is, of course, the bigger the blocks are, and the more you can see if those factors are really affecting things, or at least if you can see correlation with them, right? Because those blocking characteristics are all things researchers don't control, right? Their age, their digestive status, their professionality, their running experience, etc. Kind of cool. Yay, blocking. We talked about soup the other day and I wanted some soup, but I don't want any energy gel after that discussion. I have no interest at all. It just looks like a bag.
It was any other flavor. I would like maybe be into it, but the fact that it's vanilla is like very off-putting.
I would want it to be flavored like Skittles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I would want it to taste like weird candy flavor, not
Yeah.
like to try to fake real flavors. It looks like
coffee creamers,
goo.
but I imagine that.
Yeah, yeah, it might be bad.
I want like watermelon.
All right.
The water.
Watermelon, yeah, watermelon Jolly Rancher flavor is what I would want.
Vanilla in the context of energy gel is gross. That's fair. No one's hating on vanilla. Vanilla's good, but vanilla's great.
There's
not
no
in the
real
gel.
vanilla.
I feel like mint chocolate would have been.
Oh, sorry, Finn. I didn't see your question like set 8 minutes ago. There was a good question in the chat. Sorry. Blocking here, we're talking about that separation into groups based on characteristics. The first one we talked about was pro and amateur. I hope that became clear in those 7 minutes since your question. Remember, anybody in the room, if I'm ever ignoring a chat and you've seen it pop up on the side, just go, hey, Ralph, there's a question in the chat, and I'll get to it much quicker. Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for letting me know, Finn. Good question. Okay, team. Let's practice with the idea, just sorting out variables into their different kind of types in experiments with an example. A study has been designed to test the effect of light level and noise level on exam performance. Researchers also believe light and noise levels could have different effects on men and women. So wants to make sure both, at least binary genders, are represented in each group. Which of the below is correct? You can see they just want us to sort the variables into the explanatory, response, and blocking. So let me give the quick reminders. The explanatory variable in an experiment is what researchers can control directly. The response is what they're measuring to see if the thing they control affects something. And then the blocking variables are any characteristics of their subjects that they want to be able to track or at least avoid any confounding factor stuff happening. Okay. Go on and gaze into A, B, C, and D. And when you've got a good idea, share it out and we'll get some backup. Or we could go one at a time if you like to talk with me. I just read them one at a time, try to eliminate the bad ones for any reason. First good one, I think maybe, then I try to eliminate the other ones, good old multiple choice exam strategy. Okay, we got a nominee in the chat. People want to check the nominee's idea, we can come to consensus.
That says B then
Well, we've got a B in the room, we got a B in the chat. I saw we got a thumb up in the chat, we got some nods in the room. Let's wander across. We got more yeses. Let's do that one first then, because it looks good. I'll get my checker. There are two explanatory variables. That's things the researchers have direct control over. Light, no problem. A fader works on any light that has a fader, or just turning things on and off. Noise, any kind of noise machine or speaker works. Cool, they have complete control. A blocking variable, gender, there you go. They suspect that could have an impact on people's sensory stuff with vision and hearing. So let's watch out for that confounding nature by just making sure we separate the men and women if we're just looking at binary stuff. One response variable, yeah, they're going to measure exam performance to check out how things work out. Yeah, sorts out in a mellow way, not so bad. Once the terminology sets in, these words just start to feel familiar and mellow. As long as the terminology is not familiar or confusing, just ask and talk it through with the nearest person who understands it. And that's the best way to build your vocabulary in a new discipline, right? I mean, we've all used the words explain or explanatory and response and block in other settings. It's not like they don't have meanings already. So just talk it through if these questions look confusing on the homework with me, a classmate, a tutor, anyone you can find who knows what they're talking about or is just learning along with you, and you'll deepen your understanding and it'll fit into your vocabulary and learning better. Great. Yeah, B. Okay, reminder of the difference between blocking and explanatory variables. Those factors that are conditions researchers impose on their experimental units are explanatory variables of experiments, while blocking variables are characteristics of the subjects or the experimental units whose effects researchers would like to control rather than have skew their data one direction or another when they could have avoided it. Avoidable mistakes can be made by blocking. The bottom note's kind of cool. I like this note here. Let's give it a little star. Blocking is kind of like stratifying in the sampling process, except in an experimental setting, you do the blocking when you're assigning treatments, right? So you break up your sample into known groups you understand might have differences, and then split those groups in half for treatment and control. The cool thing is as a researcher, if you're planning to block a variable, you could use stratified sampling to build your research sample to ensure you have large enough members of all of those different groups you're blocking by. They have a large enough group, just like see the effect, right? You can kind of stratified sampling and then block back into those very strata when you do assigned treatments. Kind of cool. Like for that running experiment, they wouldn't want to just, I don't know, go to the men's football team for their running experiment if they thought gender might have an effect too, right? They'd want to make sure to go to all the different athletic programs to get lots of professional level athletes of both genders. Pretty cool. Blocking, stratifying, they're friends. They're good friends. More terminology. Some of this is familiar depending on your coursework or your experience out in the world learning about research and experiments. We've used the word placebo again and again, and when we refer to any kind of a treatment that is a control that is meant to look like a treatment. So a sugar pill in a drug trial, if you were the company and you could make the no energy gel, so everyone would get a little packet to eat that tasted disgusting according to some people's vibes with vanilla bean gel, or great for other people who like vanilla bean flavor in their gel, you know, but they'd all get the same looking thing that allows you to blind an experiment where there's like any kind of thing you're taking in. The placebo effect is the psychological effect where that anyone in a study, any subject, might have a psychological effect of being treated. So whether you're getting the sugar pill or the drug pill in a drug trial, everyone in the trial, every subject is supposed to know what the possible effects of and side effects of the treatment are. That way, they're all subject to the placebo effect, right? They're all able to feel if that's happening psychologically, and then that's random because that affects different people different ways, and similarly to how real effects of drugs are random to some degree, right? Some people don't get anything out of an ibuprofen, but some people are like, hey, that helped my throat, daddy. You know, blinding, that's when you're able to make sure subjects of an experiment, the experimental units, are not aware of their status as control or treatment. It lets you measure their response without them having a clue whether they got a drug or say a placebo. That's the classic, that's the way that medical studies prefer things work. Of course, there's things you're going to study where that can't be done. If you're assigning treatments where the subjects are doing something, they're going to know what they do. You can try to hide what you're studying some other ways if you like, if you're a clever researcher. And then in a double-blind study, or sorry, a double-blind experiment, neither the subjects nor the researchers, especially when they measure response, are aware of who's in the control or treatment groups. That minimizes the placebo effect on the researchers, right? Because researchers are also, if you're a researcher and you know this person received the drug and that person received the placebo, you might be a little more sensitive to picking up the effect when you're asking the person who took the treatment, the drug, rather than the person who took the placebo, the sugar pill. That's kind of the hopeful researcher effect. We're hoping this works, and we might want to project that onto our subjects sometimes. Avoid it by just having a big enough research team so the person who assigned the people into the groups and gave the treatment is not the person measuring response. And then you can reveal all that at the end when you do your analysis and you all work together. Cool. Oh, I think it's a nice question. Is it nice enough that I copied and pasted it into a quiz? Let's go see. I think I copied and pasted this one into a quiz. I'm going to coursework again in D2L, Brightspace, trademark, copyright, corporation, quizzes under coursework. What's it called? Observational Studies and Experiments quiz. This bodes well. I think this might be the thing we're looking at. Boring details, start quiz. Yeah, just copied and pasted that slide for today's discussion quiz, participation quiz, pardon me. What is the main difference between observational studies and experiments? A, experiments take place in a lab while observational studies do not need to. B, in an observational study, researchers only look at what happened in the past. C, pardon me, most experiments use random assignment while observational studies do not. Or D, observational studies are less useful since no causal inference, that's inference about causation, can be made based on their findings.
Let's see.
Which one?
C.
We got one vote for C? 2 votes for C? 4, 5, 6, 7? You like C? I like C. Yeah, C is great. It's a good one. Random assignment to treatments, that's the idea. We get control of at least one variable, the treatment control variable, often in many settings. And researchers and then use random assignment into those groups to minimize the effect of confounding variables, bonus level of that minimization if they've done some blocking, and then you can check out what the effect of that treatment or lack of treatment is. Pretty cool. The other options may have been tempting. We're so used to thinking about scientific experiments, and those of us who took like chemistry class or physics class did a lot of work in a lab when we were in those settings. But just the running experiment where the runners eat goo. They're not running around in a lab, they're running around the running area of their city or town or country area. So yeah, you can do an experiment wherever it makes sense. Observational studies, same thing. They can happen in any setting that is necessary where the thing you're studying can be observed. B, many observational studies do look at data that exists, so that they're called retrospective studies, where you have existing data and you want to analyze it and learn more about it. Though, of course, you can design a study that would gather data as the study goes along. The study of British women's health outcomes that we talked about last time would be a perfect example. They started that study in 1975. I'm guessing not every researcher on the original team was still working 20 years later. Maybe a few of them retired or got new jobs, but they kept the study going with enough people to analyze the results that were collected over the course of decades. And of course, last option there, observational studies being less useful than experiments. Well, that doesn't make sense because there's tons of things we'd like to learn about where we can't take control of any of the variables of interest. Smoking research, global climate change research, tons and tons of socioeconomic situations, tons of things. So yeah, observational studies are wonderful, as are experiments. They're both useful in the settings where they make sense. Right? But be sure to get your point and don't forget to tap the submit quiz button. I'll never tap it because I don't want to mess up the grade book with pointless scores for the teacher. Oh yeah, and there's that great question. Isn't it true that we can't determine causal relationships from observational studies though? Well, not from just one study. So from just one observational study, we can show correlation, we can talk about relationships, we can make predictions, but we're not going to be confident saying this causes that. Though, again, many observational studies together can make that claim, like in the case of smoking's harmful health effects, or in the case of the impact of never-ending and increasing carbon-based fuel burning on our global environment.
I feel like it's in the wording too, like, yeah, there can be no causal inference made based on the findings, but it doesn't make it less useful.
yeah, the relationships are still useful to understand. Whether or not you're completely confident this causes that, if you get a good handle on, well, if I can decrease that, I can predict that's going to decrease. That's often good enough for like day-to-day, living. Like, yeah. So yeah, multiple studies are the key though. And I think our next slide actually has some more information. We have a slide in here that has kind of reminds us of that in a cool way too. Is it the next one? Is it? Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is it. The big slide. It's a big slide. Look at this thing. It's full of stuff. And it's like almost the top of the hour. This is not like a 2-minute slide. This is like a 5 or 10-minute slide because it's just a ton of stuff on one. It's a lot of information in one place, and it's also a good one. It's kind of like a chapter 1 review slide. But so let's exhale, take a break, and then we'll come back and I'll show you like the most important things to look at in this slide if you want to look at it back for your notes and stuff on exams or for your homework. And also just there's a couple of critiques to offer for a couple of ideas here and a couple of good reminders like we're having in the chat. So take a break. We'll be back here at 7 minutes past the hour. That's 12:07. Bang. Oh, come on, T, brew, brew. Soon, T, you and me. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Oh, no. Okay, we're about here. It's about 7 minutes past the hour. I hope you had a mellow break. Uh, I hope the texts have been checked, the sports scores updated, the shopping dreams explored, whatever the internet's got for you, they're all good. 10 minutes is not long enough to level up in any video game, I don't think. Quick round of Tetris. Yeah, there's fast games. I shouldn't speak like that. There's plenty of fast games where you can party for 10 minutes. Whatever, or just if you got some relaxation, some fresh air, or just a time to relax your mind. I hope it was good. However you relax. We're back. We left off with one more slide remaining in our experiments section slides. Let's check this one out. Okay, I'm gonna just talk through this, but kind of add, I know it's already incredibly visually messy, but I'm just gonna it's gonna get messier in hopes of making it easier to read. Let's go one thing at a time. Experiments, right? Should always use random assignment to groups. Okay, see how they're doing this in the chart below? The random assignments, they've got a column right here. Bing, 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 bing. So I'll use orange for that just because that happens to be the color that happens to be selected when I started to draw that underline under experiments. And the note here though is, well, let's make sure observational studies, I'm just going to go green because it's the contrasting color to orange. If I remember my youth well enough to remember the names of colors that are across the color wheel from one another. Observational studies do not use random assignment, but they should use random sampling from the population of interest, whether it's simple random sampling, if you have access or the ability to number your population of interest, or any combination of cluster sampling, stratified sampling, systematic sampling, any combination of those. A multi-stage process can also work, but you want to just do what you can to do random sampling, and that's that top row of the two rows. Green doesn't look that great in contrast to the blue, but at least, well, let's try it again. Hold on. What if I go outside the blue? You can see it better. Yeah, green. There you go. Okay, and then you can see they're sorting things out in the table into different combinations of both. Notice if you're in the top left there with random assignment, so you've got the causation conclusion or the causal conclusion you can make from random assignment. Where's my checker? There it is. That's something that people like as researchers. You can talk about causation and effects. And if you manage to do random sampling to set up your experiment, ding, ding, you can also generalize that result to the entire population from which you were able to draw your sample, with everybody having a reasonable chance of being in the sample, as close to an equal chance as you could get in your soup stirring process. How many examples have we seen like that so far in all of our examples of studies and experiments? You can stop thinking there were no examples like that. This is incredibly rare because to get to the point where you're able to do random assignment in most ethical designs of experiments, there's going to be some informed consent involved. And that kind of wrecks the idea of random sampling. You get limited to people who are willing to participate. You switch from a random sample to something like a voluntary or even sometimes a convenience sample. So while this would be the best thing, ideal, I'll just put a little note up there, and rare, right? And oh, I hope that's clearly sarcastic, that damn consent, obviously a joke. We all know consent is the best in so many situations, whether it's ethical experiments, design, or our personal lives. It's crucial that we communicate clearly what we want and what we want to do with whoever we want to do stuff with anytime, whether it's inflicting a ukulele song on someone or any other interpersonal behavior that's more intense than that. And could be much better than that, obviously, because that's one of the bad kinds. Dorky example. Came up during the break is why. In any case, now the other places are the more common places. We've been talking about experiments today, so let's go down that random assignment column to the world where there's no random sampling, like the goo experiment. We'd have to go get some athletes willing to participate and eat goo to do that as experiment. In that setting, they've got, yes, causation in this sample where there's some effect of chomping energy gel on running speed or any other running measurement you want to measure. Great, we can show that's true, though when you got that informed consent, you lost that ability to generalize. So most experiments get you one lovable green check mark, talk about causation and effects, though you have to do more than one experiment in more than one sample over, whatever period of time the research community remains engaged in the idea to really establish causation as a truth. There's many times when, well, not many, but if you look around, you'll find examples of, like, say a new drug comes to market and it's got a well-advertised effect because the company who's making it is very happy and excited that they've got good research and approval from the Federal Drug Administration to share a new drug that might have positive effects for lots of people in their samples, as they've done all of the proper work to get the drug to market. And then when it goes into broad use and more data pours in, sometimes ill side effects or that the drug is not as effective for some people as others becomes more and more clear over the years. But you don't know until you get a large enough body of evidence, some of which is experimental and then some also observational, to get a sense of what's really happening. So good job, experiments. You can get us to the point of having an idea there's an effect, but you often can't get us over the line to guarantee that effect is going to be the same throughout a large population. So tricky. So most experiments, and they're still good, let's give them a check mark, right? Let's give them a check mark because most experiments are good. They get a check mark. Okay, back in the last section, we mainly focused on observational studies that are as best as possible done with as random as possible samples. That puts us in the top right here. They've got random sampling in their work, which is great. When you've got a result, you can generalize it to the population of interest, though without any direct control of any variables, you can't talk about causation in any of those individual observational studies, right? So we talked about the pluses and minuses of that in some detail last class, but so most observational studies, while they've got a green mark and an X, they still get a check for being great. They're great. And that's those two one check parts of the chart are the most common research settings in most disciplines, because that's just how the world has been so far, at least as far as how statisticians describe it. Okay, the last box is down there in the lower right. You can see this is in a situation without any random assignment, so researchers have no control over any variables and cannot talk about causation, so no causal conclusion. And the correlation statements they make can only be for their sample because they were unable to do random sampling as well. So 2 red X's. And then here's my only critique. It says as the description with the little arrow all the way at the bottom right, that makes that a bad observational study. And I'm going to respectfully disagree because I've learned things about action research or the science of teaching and learning as a specific example. There's tons of settings where the person who wants to do research does not have the option of random assignment and does not have the option of random sampling, but they still want to do things and learn stuff with the sample in front of them. Anytime a teacher tries out a new teaching technique in a research setting, basically what they do is they say, I'm going to try this new technique with my students and report what happens in a research setting so other teachers can get a sense of what happened. No one ever thinks that what happened in those particular classes should be generalized to every student everywhere or every teacher everywhere, but we can sure learn a lot from fellow educators' experiences trying new techniques out. It's super valuable, so not bad at all. It's just another option. So the only thing I'm going to do here is just use the same two X's to cross out bad and just write observational studies like action research. It's when you just want to do some research in the context of what you do normally. Teachers don't get paid extra money to be researchers in most settings. They do it because they care about learning, students, and, education. A few of them can get paid for it if they are so good at it and charismatic they can do a TED Talk and stuff. Good for them. Go get the money, teachers. Yeah.
Like, it's really in like a generalizability.
Sure. Good.
Like, if they're only concerned about their classroom, why would they care about the population?
Well, I care about the whole population.
Well, yeah,
You know?
they do, like, they care about other students, obviously, and like, as a teacher, they feel some sense of like, they care about, other students, other teachers and stuff, but like, if they're coming to class every single day and they're only really interacting with their own students, like, there's.
Right. Well, every teacher, I mean, we all work in large systems, right? So whether someone works at a private university like Harvard, like the fanciest research setting you could work in, or like a public school in like a rural Idaho, where like they can barely pay teachers what they're worth. In fact, they're not paid what they're worth. They can't pay off their student loans. And they're struggling to meet their students' needs because they don't have the resources. But any teacher in any setting can always ask questions about what would work better for my students. And the nice thing about most teachers in most settings learn quickly how much autonomy they have, right? In any job, you're going to have supervision of some sort, but in some jobs you have less supervision. Like, for example, have you ever seen one of the deans of Portland Community College in your classroom? Has anybody ever stopped by and say, hi, I'm your instructor supervisor and I want to supervise today? Yeah? Once, right? Okay. Yeah, it was once. And it's probably that instructor might have been supervised that one day. And that's just, but that's not the regular thing. And that's not how the work goes for most teachers. That autonomy gives most people space to, at least with our own students day to day, try to do better work. And sometimes we might not do exactly what's required of us by our supervisors, because we might, in our research, come to think that the ideas that they're telling us to do aren't the best ones. So it's tricky. Yeah, you're right, and it's tricky and to navigate the idea that I can't generalize here, but I'm going to do what I can for my students. So, but if people are bold and do things in an action research setting, they can do things and share their results in ways that can really support their fellow educators and students everywhere. That's why those are not bad at all, observational studies wise. The rare ideal experiments up in the other corner, they're just hard to do. If you can set one up, I'll just tell you right now, you can get paid by the National Science Foundation. They will give you money to do your research if you can guarantee it's applicable and useful and it's perfectly set up. That's the easiest way to get money to do research. That's another reason why teachers just do it on their own. They can't get the money, right? Because the money's up here in the 2 check mark zone. Yeah, Liv.
I was just wondering if you could try to this in the class notes. I know it'll be in the YouTube thing, but.
Excellent question.
I like that place better.
What a supremely good question, because I can do it this second. This exact slide with those colored notes is going into our class notes as requested. Click, click. Let's just call it, so you can look it up quickly. Last or 1.5 slides. Last. What do you want to call it? What's it called? Let's just look the name of it. Experiments and studies. Yeah, great. Don't refer. If I can spell. I'm trying to type faster than I should. That's always the bugaboo of the person who is me. What's that heading to? Yeah, so down here. Got to learn my organization as I go to there and there. Bam. So that lives with the bonus organizational coloration in there to help you out eyeballs wise. Good idea. All right, any other questions or observations about this stuff before we wander into our lab work for the day? All right, let's go wandering into our lab work. Great work.
Who was that on your book?
That is my little guy about 1 year ago when he was about to turn 8. What a beauty. His hair is so much longer now. It's so pretty, little guy. He's also the guy who chose my haircut. But I don't really care too much. And he's like, Daddy, longer. And every week I say, kid, but don't you remember? Don't you remember how much nicer it was with a fuzzy daddy? He's like, that was horrible. No. And then I say, whatever. So yeah, I'm not a hippie. I just don't have a lot of strong feelings about my head. So when you judge my ponytail. All right. Okay, let's wander off to that lab. Yeah, so he's sick at his mom's house today. He's got a sore throat. Little cutie boy. Okay, lab time. We didn't talk about the guidelines last time, so let's walk through those first. They're just right here, part 0, guidelines. I'll just blow them up a little bit. There's not a lot here, just basic ideas to get us on the same page with how the work works. Your 243 lab project is a quarter-length critical thinking statistics project designed to give you an opportunity to analyze a current large data set to better understand a current social issue. That is like barely reworded from where I got this design, and let's give credit where credit is due right away. It's down at the bottom. But your project materials, all this lab stuff was adapted from work shared by Sue Ann Jones-Dobbin, Brittany Mosby, and Claire Sudeth, and I'm almost 100% sure I've mispronounced at least 2 of their names, either first or last or both. But they shared it in 2015 at a conference I attended. They were so cool. And I went to their session completely by accident. I was in the wrong room with a couple of friends who wanted to go to learn something. And they're like, oh, we're going to get out of here. And I was like, I don't know, this looks pretty good. And then at the end of their session, they handed out, back in those days, you shared stuff with, instead of the internet, a thumb drive. Everybody got a cute little thumb drive with all of the stuff they shared. So things have changed a lot. Also, let's thank Max Macias, who works here at Portland Community College in the IT department, though he's a trained librarian and an expert librarian, and also just a wonderful activist in all sorts of settings. Yay, Max. But he suggested our data set, what we'll talk about when we get to when we get beyond this stuff. And back when we started doing this work, then we had a person here called Miguel Arellano Sanchez working at the Multicultural Center who helped me develop some ideas for this project as well. Thank you to those 5 particular people who helped out a lot getting this set up. So if anything good that's happening in this section that you think, wow, that's set up well, think that there's like 5 people beyond me to think about their creativity and their care for students. Some goals. Goal number 1, analyzing real current data. That's just the best way to learn about statistics. There's so much data on Earth, and there's no reason to use made-up data sets or boring things. So this project avoids that. Second idea, use statistical thinking to ask and answer data-based questions. In chapter 1, we've talked a lot about gathering a good data set. counting, measuring, and describing things, and then typing them out into the various data types. We've talked about bias arising here and there. We've talked about how to avoid it and a lot of other things, but we haven't slowed down to just like look at a data set and say, okay, what do you want to know about it? Like we have this giant data matrix of numbers and descriptions, but what do you want to analyze? That's a data-based question. Anytime you slow down to think like that, that's one of your goals today. We'll work on those. Of course, you want to bring your own critical perspective to statistical work. It helps to have a real current issue to think about when you do so, because that engages your brains and your heart. Your heart is part of your critical perspective, don't forget. Here's the thing that really, the women who shared this at that conference, these 4 bullets were the ones I was like, whoa, this is so much better than the stats book, because we're going to revisit the same data set throughout the quarter. As we learn new techniques, we'll come back to a data set and be able to analyze it new ways. That really kind of does a better job of showing us how statistics work than looking at, 50 different examples over the course of 5 homework problems per week with all different data contexts, at least for me. So the minute I understood how it worked, I was like, these women are geniuses. Tell me more, tell me more. And so great work, women who developed this. So yeah, we'll use concepts and techniques we learned throughout the course. And there's about 6 chunks of our lab project that we'll approach. The last one, part 6, is a big one that deals with 2 big topics. So we'll split that one up over 2 days to work on it. And the last bullet there, just developing our communication skills to discuss challenging social issues. That's just useful in life. So just anytime we get a chance to work on something challenging, we're doing good work. Okay, guidelines wise, just you're going to submit stuff up into assignments, just like your homework. That's relaxing. So you're already submitting homework, you've got that down. Written responses should always be, complete sentences using clear grammar. That clear just meaning the kind you use to communicate, not fancy or correct grammar. And I want to hear, when I read your work, I want to read your voice and your style. I have no interest in the voice and style of anyone but you, as a group of human beings. And there's things out there that will, it's like turning on a tap and wasting water, as ChatGPT wastes our resources, our precious world, and gives you back some crap that anybody could have downloaded. That's not valuable, right? Just be yourself, write your own stuff. And of course, your style's better than that canned crap. Every word of your project, speaking of which, should be your own original work. That's for learning. Like if you're not working and thinking, you're not going to learn anything. So that's just normal. You're going to work together in class. If you're in the Zoom world, of course, you're part of our class, and we'll engage you in our discussions during lab work via the chat and via your microphones as you get my attention. When I'm walking around in the room, I can always see the screen, as you know, those of you who've been in the room before. So I'll see hands raised in the chat, in the participants window, and see new chats pop up and be able to, engage with your questions as needed. I didn't really, this is communicating stuff is kind of straightforward. The only note here is if anybody does kind of calculations by hand in their notes, it's cool to include those in your work. If it's a lot of stuff that's by hand, just a quick scan that you just paste into your write-up is great. And same thing, input and output for calculations done with technology. The screenshot is the way that I've always done that, or I've learned to do that over the years, now that screenshots are so ubiquitously done on so many devices. We'll always be using graphical displays to make, technology to make graphical displays in our work. Like we'll use Google Sheets when we sort out categorical data, and we'll use GeoGebra for sorting out numerical data. Spreadsheets are the most commonly used sorting tool, so that it's great to work with them, especially for categorical data. Though GeoGebra is not maybe the very best stats technology, but it's completely free, and it has like all of the stats routines we want to do. And once we get through its slightly annoying learning curve and get used to asking questions and working with it, it's great once you get how it works. So we'll support all the development of those skills here in class during lab work. if I was gonna recommend to people who are like outside the room and like Zoom best, if there's any lab sections you want to put on your calendar to come in person, if you're the type of person who does much better with tech support, with being in the room with people, well, no choice on numerical day to day. That's just going to be Zoom. So we'll all be in the same boat. We'll be Zooming together. But if you've never worked with like spreadsheets like Google Sheets before, that Monday, the lab on categorical data, you can get full spreadsheet support right in the room. It's much, much easier, of course, to help someone with a tech issue when you can look over their shoulder rather than when you're sharing screens and only one person's, you have to talk through what you're seeing in a screen. Although I've got, 5 years of experience now, so it doesn't feel as weird as it used to. Like, I'm not at all nervous that we're going to not be together in the room for the Zoom, the numerical day to day. You'll meet GeoGebra just looking at a screen in a comfortable place. Maybe even being on your own might help, being able to ask to see things twice and slow things down. We'll see. We'll work together. What else? Oh, graphical displays just need a caption, whether they're coming out of a spreadsheet program. Sometimes the captions are automatic, so you don't have to do much. When things come out of GeoGebra, they come out without a caption. You just want to make sure it ends up in your work somewhere where you know what the graph means. Not a big deal. Just like your homework, I'll just give you full credit for your work as you submit it up to the assignments in D2L. Just want to honor your work and your learning. I don't want to sort you out or rate you based on exactly what you did that one day. That seems weird. And to double check things, like if you're didn't get all your questions answered, you're not sure about some of your results, or you're like, did that graph looks weird to my eyeballs? Ugh. Like maybe you missed the class day entirely and worked on it on your own. After you submit your assignment, like the next second, you can like open up the key in D2L and compare your work to it. So full comparison to my examples of all the work once you're done and you've submitted stuff. And that, you don't, if you got something wrong on your work, you can edit it for your own learning, but you're going to get full credit when you're just done working, right? Make sense? Any questions about all that stuff? Not too complicated, just a little bit more, slightly more complicated than homework. And really, I just wanted to honor the work of the people who helped us develop this. Oh, great question. When we get there, and we're not going to need it today, but when we do get there, the quickest path to getting it is our links page. Beep. And right there, last one, GeoGebra Classic. When you want to play with this and mess with it, it's really useful starting in the first section of chapter 2 when you want to mess with numerical stuff. So we'll see some examples of this in our next discussion in class when we get to chapter 2. Yeah, and it just pops open. It's called geogebra.org/classic. Boom, classic. People love classics. Or do they? Do we love classics?
The classic movie, classic music.
They become classics, but not everybody loves them. I guess that's funny. Some people love all the classics. Some love some classics. Some people hate some of the classics. Maybe that's one of the reasons it's classic. Strong reaction. Right? Yeah. All right, cool. Any other questions about the guidelines while we're here? All right, relaxing. Well, let's get into our let's just get into part 1. There is something here that I'm kind of skipping just for time. Let me just tell you what I'm skipping, even though we have this little debate, discussion, dialogue. It's like an activity that takes maybe, I don't know, half an hour. But if we don't do it today, we'll have a lot more time to work on the thing. So I'm just gonna skip. If you want to look at this, it's kind of cool. I'll just give you a peek. It sorts out. So I think nerds call that a taxonomy, when you sort things out into columns and rows. Ideas about debate, discussion, and dialogue, and how they kind of show up communicating across differences. If you're thinking about yourself, if you're thinking about other people, how your emotions go, and what the end goal of each of those sort of 3 communication modes is. If we had a half an hour that was just a spare half an hour right now, we'd spend time kind of reading this and thinking about which of these communication modes are most valuable in a learning setting, especially if things are either complicated or challenging or like upsetting or any combination, right? So, sorry, we don't have that half an hour this quarter. It's just time is rushing by in Stats 1 this quarter. But I'd recommend looking through this. Every time I've looked through it, it's kind of reminded me of what's important for me in my work with students and heck, in my work like at meetings with colleagues and stuff. Anytime you're in a space where you're talking with people and there's maybe differences or even conflicts, it's good to have a sense of what you're trying to do and what's possible. So if you have time, I recommend this as just a valuable thing to look through that might inform some of your communication skills in your school and professional lives. But half an hour of your life, just put circles around the ones you think are useful and cool for you, or question marks or comments, and you might get a little bit out of it. That's the totally optional recommendation. Hold on a second. I've been ignoring this fresh cup of tea this whole time. Oh, it's so good. Now it's like not even hot at all. It's just warm. It didn't turn bitter yet. It's good. Okay, team, ready? Let's go. We're going to do counterpart 1. Now, the plan, though, is I want to randomize the folks in the room. I'm going to randomize you just so you'll get near someone you haven't gotten near yet in the class, have a chance to meet someone new or a couple new people. So get ready for some randomizing. Are you mentally and emotionally ready? Yeah, just exhale. If you love your seat, you could just, there's ways to maintain your seat and force your group to your seat. I'll explain those in a minute. The way I'm going to do this first, I'm going to count you all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 18 of you. Maybe groups of 3, three people per group is a good group size. That would make 6 groups of human beings in the room. Ready to learn how it's going to go. I'm just going to start in this corner and then count across the rows by 6. So either write down your number or keep it on your fingers somewhere so you don't lose your number. Nicole, you're number 1. Cassidy, 2. Liv, 3. Madison, 4. Boom, again, I did it again. It's Matilda. I can't think of Zoolander. It's a classic movie. I don't know.
Don't,
I mean, I know it's got a male model
or something.
or something. Yeah. Matilda, 4. Waltzing Matilda.
Or the girl, yeah, what's the girl?
Dante, number 5. Nolan, number 6. Elizabeth, number 1. Maria, number 2. Tanaya, number 3. Kat, number 4. Groovy. Kira, number 5. Maxine, 6. Chanel, 1. Oh, I get it. There's only 3 rows there. Okay, we'll go that way. Wences, 2. Abby, 3. Look at that. I got your name right. That was great. Drew, 4. Pete, 5. Eli, 6. And Ryder, 1. Fastest way to find people is to get your number on your fingers up high in the air. Be willing to move if you're willing to move, or just say like, come on over this way if you're not willing to move, and do a lot of waving. People got to kind of get up to kind of move around, because unless you're like happen to be next to someone raising their hand, which is impossible based on how I counted, someone's got to move, at least from every zone. So be kind of movement based in your finding of your zone. Oh, great question. We'll work in these little groups till the end of class. So like you're kind of finding your new home. You're finding a new home that'll last you through to the end of class. So be prepared to find a nice new home. Find that home as quickly as possible. Take your time, but find your crew. Folks at home on the Zoom world, just relax your mind while people find their zones. Not the worst thing in the world to move your seat. It's not the best. It's not the worst. Just something that sometimes happens in life. We're stirring the soup here. Soup stirring, it's good for statistics. You're getting a random sample of classmates. That's the best kind of sample. A systematic random sample of people to work with.
No. Pull up the corners. Are you number one?
You want computing power for your whole group. Notice we have 7 rows and 6 groups. So you should have either your own device. If you're in this row, you should have your own device. If you're in a row with 2 groups, you're going to definitely need some personal devices to navigate the internet. If you're in a row with otherwise just find a nice row. Great row. Your favorite row. It's looking pretty good. I've seen groups finding their new homes. Good things are happening as groups find homes. Great work, teams. Great groupings. This is going really well. Oh, I'm so happy. As I've stirred the soup. I've done systematic random sampling of you. You are now in a sample of size approximately 3, or maybe 4, or maybe 2, depending on how things actually went. I think we had 4 for group 1, maybe. I might have miscounted the number of people. Cassidy. Don't do that. But that's a great question because it's an obviously good question. Okay, team, come back to me for a sec. First great question that arose was, okay, we're going to go to this part 1 data, the counted Google Doc. First question is such an obvious good question. Can our whole group use the same doc? Let's go back to the guidelines. Where are they? No. You work on your own copy of this doc. You do your own work. You work together. You talk together, but you produce your own work. That makes sense? That's it. You make your own copy. You work on your own copy. It's your copy. It's your work. Because at the end of class, there might be more to do. You're going to walk out into the world and your classmates will be gone. And you wouldn't want to edit the doc without them or have them edit it without you if you're responsible for your own work. Right? It's just old fashioned that way. But yeah, I don't know how to do the best possible shared doc version. And I want everybody to have the chance to get their own voices, get your own voice and style. It goes away as soon as you edit in a group, right? Great question. Great question. So be sure when you arrive at project part 1, the counted from the old zone of D2L, when you make mine, the first thing you want to do is just make a copy of this thing. If you have your PCC Google account or a personal Google account open, making a copy is going to give you a digital copy. If you'd rather download it to work on your own device in your own format, there's the download option. A little further down, you can do your Microsoft Word, open document format, good old rich text. People love a rich text format. Heck, plain text. If you're truly nerdy, you could go plain text, full on, like a programmer. But whatever you like, I always just make a copy and do mine in the Google world. I name mine so I can find it later in a special way. But that's a nice name, copy of, etc. Be sure you know where it's going to get stored in your device. This is winter 2025. Yeah, that's my copy, winter 2025. Make a copy. All right, cool. Once you've got your own copy, you have all sorts of power to edit and look at it, zoom into it like I'm going to do, and we can work together. All right, here we go. Oh, bonus level, it's quarter till, right? So normally you'd be expecting a break at the top of the hour. Today, because it's lab day, you just take whenever you need a break from the work. You just take a break. If you never need a break, no break, right? You can just keep working until you're ready to go. If you get done and your whole group's like, we're done, Ralph, we've submitted our work, we're out the door, that's cool. If you work right up until the end of class, that's cool. And if you take any breaks during class, that's great. Yeah, tonight.
I saw the due date isn't until the 22nd.
Great question. If you didn't hear that on the mic, you are never expected to completely finish all the lab work during the first class we open it up. In an ideal day, the dream would be most people would wrap up the work getting their questions asked and answered, writing up their ideas and getting them all done during the lab time. That would be the ideal dream world, but this is reality where all of us have different styles, working speeds, processing needs, questions. Some people couldn't make it to class because they were sick or whatever, right? So I always set the due date a week out. And then if we need a little more work time next class, that sometimes happens. We just have that wiggle room for more work time in class. Or just anyone who didn't quite get all their questions answered because of their style or their whole group style needs more time, but we don't have time in class. You can always ask the questions the next class during homework questions or lab questions time. Yeah, so always do a week out, but of course, upload the thing to assignments just when you're done and we're working together. Ideally, you wrap it up as soon as possible, just like a homework assignment. Great question in the chat. Are we going to go in breakout rooms in the Zoom world? No, I think of yourselves as one big group because there's 8 of y'all. You have the chat, so you can always quickly make comments to each other in the chat. You can use your mics as well. If you want to use your mics a lot, we can make an adjustment by muting my speakers in here so it doesn't distract the room here. And then you can just chat to me. Ralph, we need something for your mics to come back on for the rest of us. Does that sound good? Lots of details here to get started the first time, but you know. Sound pretty good? Cool. So yeah, like people in the Zoom world, you kind of determine your own Zoom lab style. Each quarter's been different. Some quarters there's been a really lively chat. Sometimes they've asked me to mute our speakers here so they can crank up the mics. There's been other styles too. If you really want breakout rooms, so you can be sure to share your screens with each other, I could make those, and then I can, I guess I could figure that out. So we can figure that out together. Okay, team. Any other just organizational questions? Wait time, tea drinking is a perfect wait time. Okay, our goals today, we want to consider the context of our data set. That's going to be the first task. There's some statistical tasks, just differentiating between samples and populations. That can be a subtle question, and it actually kind of is here, so it'll be an interesting discussion for most groups or for the whole group. Observational studies and experiments, not such a subtle discussion there. And then types of variables, numerical, whether it's continuous or discrete, and then your categorical variables, whether they're descriptive or whether they're ordinal in some way, a ranking, a rating, or an order of events in time. Then you'll get a chance to start to ask and think about statistical questions based on the data set. Now, we're gonna, the topic that Max suggested is a while back was the Guardians Project that counts people killed by police in the US. He made that suggestion in the context of a very difficult email discussion at Portland Community College among people who work here. And his comment was, somebody should talk about this stuff in class. And I was like, yeah, he's right. Because if we don't ever talk about challenging things, we are never going to ever make any progress. That's just part of life. We can't avoid the challenges of Earth. So this is a project that started in 2015 and only went for like 1 more year. So the data set actually only covers the years of 2015 and 2016. And we'll have a lot of time to learn a lot about it throughout the quarter. There's other more recent data sets that are available also online, though some of them live at like the Washington Post, which has, you know, they want your money to get inside and look at their website. And I wanted to minimize those kinds of barriers. You can go look at the fancy newspapers for free at the PCC library, but it's a little tricky to wander through. So rather than try to have one more thing to explain, I stuck with the freely available data set from The Guardian. Okay, so here we go. Task 1.1. The goal here is to get a sense of what's going on in this project, and in particular, how they did it and why. So they have at their main page, there's this about page. And like many things on the internet that are older than like 3 years, when you open it up, it looks a little weird. See, look at that. The background is like light gray. And the type is like less light gray. That's because in the olden days, the Guardian's long form journalism had a black background, and now it has a light gray background. And when they changed, it didn't fix. If you want to quickly light up this whole, any page in here, whether it's the about page or others for legibility, your old select all option will just select all the text and it goes highlighted black on yellow. That's really easy to read from my eyes. I hope that helps people with that contrast issue. But otherwise, this is your first reading to do to just learn about this project. I suggest in my instructions, or the instructions, pardon me, I suggest, yeah, so don't forget highlight text for readability. And if you read it aloud, like take turns reading aloud, that's an underrated way to share stuff and develop understanding together. Like I've been reading to a little boy for the last 8 years and it kind of helps me. I don't know, it's good for me and it's good for my little kid. And it's just something we don't do enough, I don't think, in daily life. But reading aloud in your group is completely optional. If your group chooses to do that, one person reading or taking turns, it might make it more humane and more of an experience to share. Or you can read silently together. It's up to y'all. But the questions you want to have in your mind as you're reading that about page: what is the purpose of the counter project? Why does the Guardian as an organization consider it necessary? And just after reading that about page, what questions immediately arise for you about the data set? Any kinds of questions about the process of gathering the data, about the larger situation that they're investigating, or anything else that comes up for you in your thinking. Those aren't questions anyone has to be able to answer, and they can be as mundane or as critical as you like. Okay. Second task, then you get into the statistical questions. These ones I strongly recommend you double check with the people in your group and double check that you're all at the same spot. The first one, observational versus experimental status of the research here, and just make sure you're all in the same spot. Second one, are we talking about a sample with the data set or a population, and how do you know? Question 5 is one that I'll probably check in with your group on your discussion. It actually is a little bit of a subtle discussion. And then there's the big task of this project is sorting out all the variables in the data set. So we're going to use Google Sheets to access everything. There's a direct link right there to the Counted's 2016 data set. They have sort of 2 full year data sets. It opens up, well, they have an Excel file you can download from their webpage. I just uploaded it into my PCC Google account, turning it into a Google Sheet so we can all access it freely from any device. When you pop it open, you'll see there's a top row, and every column in that top row has its label. And every label is just a new variable, name, age, gender, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And your goal is to open this up, look at all of these different variables, and I've made a simple little table. You just say, okay, name, what is that? Categorical, numerical, and the subtypes. Go down the list and you get them all sorted out. Some of them are subtle. You know, sometimes whether something's continuous or discrete is not exactly clear. Sometimes it's not clear if something is a numerical variable or an ordinal variable. So have those discussions and double check with your partners in work and with me. I'm a member of all your teams, whether you're chatting or asking in the room, right? Oh, bonus note, don't forget to ask me what UID means if it's not clear to you when you get there. If I tell you right now, you might forget in half an hour. So just check. Anything that's not clear, double check with me when you get there. And then once people are involved in this work, typing these out at some point today, by the end of class, our dream is, I'll talk in more detail about number 7 as groups start to ask me about it, but why talk about it now? We've already talked about more than enough for y'all to get started on. Sound cool? Enough to get started, I mean? All right, awesome. Get started. I look forward to questions as they arise. Good work to you. And for folks out in the Zoom world, I'll tend to like mute the mic in here just because when it gets chatty, it can distract people at home. But then, you know, I'll turn it back on when I talk to y'all. Finn, I see that hand. Does a mic or a chat work better?
I can use my mic if it doesn't sound too obnoxious.
What's that?
I can use my mic if it doesn't sound too obnoxious.
I don't think it's obnoxious.
Okay,
The point where
so what about me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so all right. Oh yeah. So on task 1.2 or question 5, it says, does the data represent a sample or a population? Explain your choice.
Mhm.
I guess I'm not super clear on the difference yet, but I'm leaning towards population because um it is like the people in the study or I don't know, but it is a population of people that were all killed by the police during a certain amount of time. Like they didn't just handpick people, right?
Good observations. This is such a good question that it's probably worth it for the whole class to hear it. So hold on. Let me grab everybody's attention. Is yelling the best way to get your attention? Or just if I do this to like grab your attention from your screens and discussions, will that work too? We had a great question coming from outside the room that I know will arise in like more than one or two groups, maybe all of the groups when you get there, because it's one of the most common good questions. Someone out there in our world dialed in to say focusing in on 1, 2. So wherever you are in your work, shift your eyes down to number 5 under task 1, 2. Do these data represent a sample or a population? Paraphrasing what our question asker said, they're not sure, though they're leaning toward population because the Guardian journalists are describing a specific group of people they're interested in. Those people police killed these years they're doing the project. Question makes sense? Now, what would take you to commit to that as a population? Or what would convince you that maybe it's a sample rather than a population? Is there a follow-up question that could help you get to one or the other? Yeah, Dante?
They said they sampled 1,100 of them that reported that it was a justified homicide case.
Mhm.
What about the other 6,900? Why didn't they interview all of them or look into all of them?
I don't know that.
That 1,100 made this a sample population.
People understand what Dante's talking about? So they're looking at a specific year by year, for example, these are samples of year by year, for one thing. Okay, that's one thing. We're getting a vote for sample in the chat. Do you want to hear my follow-up question? Like, because I think that the goal of the Guardian, as described by our question asker who mic'd in, is they want a census of people police have killed during the project. My follow-up question is, can they be confident they did that census? Yeah, no. Well, their goal is to get the biggest possible list of people who meet the criteria of the project. Though, there's journalists involved who are doing research and looking at research, like, looking at other journalistic outlets all around the country, local newspapers, local news to find cases. They're depending on crowdsourcing as well to find some cases. But there's no way they can be positive they got the entire group, right? I mean, at least not at the initial pass. Over the following years, comparing their list to other lists made by people doing similar research, the thing that makes it tricky is every group who does research like this, whether it's a journalistic organization like the Guardian or the Washington Post, or just an activist organization like the Killed by Police Project, they all have like different specific criteria to make the list. So no two lists are quite alike. So with all of those little caveats, would you be confident calling it an entire population or a sample? Sample, yeah. And whenever you have a lot of caveats, whichever caveat you're describing, numerical, data gathering challenges, even if your goal is a census, you're still working with a sample. In this case, hopefully a very large sample that captures the vast majority of people police killed during the project. Any follow-up questions, or is that good discussion? So I would recommend writing down in your own voice and style what you think about that little discussion we had at number 5 this second. So it's there in your words, in your work. Nolan,
What you're saying is that it represents a sample, because for it to represent a population, it would be very difficult, basically impossible to get something that was 100% representative of the population.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Without complete confidence that they have 100% of the population of people police killed during these years, they should stick with viewing this as a sample. Yeah, great. Great question, great discussion. And that's kind of the rhythm of these. When a great question arises, we try to keep it on the mic so that every group and everyone out there in the Zoom world can all benefit from the discussion. So, okay, noise back as you discuss other questions that you've got, or that follow-up question from Cassidy. Oh, great. Oh, bang. I mentioned that people are going to want to know what UID stands for in the intro. And when you get there to ask, you're there. UID is short for Unique Identifier. These are just numbers assigned to the cases as the Guardian journalists learned about them. So if you look at the numbers down that UID column, they all start off as 2016 for 2016, and then 06, that's probably the 6th case they put into their spreadsheet that year. You know, the second row has the 81st case they found out about that year. Those are largely arbitrary as far as when they found out. So, you know, then type those out as you like. And I'll put that in the chat for everybody out there in the Zoom world too.
And it's kind of doing numerical and categorical, and then I know, actually. Because every time I'm like, oh, I got it, that's what I do for sure.
Not a-
Are you trying to summon this graph?
I'm trying to summon you, but not everybody can see me, so my summoning skill is weak. Summoning skill is weak. I don't know. I'm trying to summon you. There's a great question in the chat that I've already spoke with about a couple of groups, but that usually means that the groups I haven't spoken with about it probably will have a similar question. So let's make sure this makes it into the Zoom world and also out into the YouTube world for folks who had to leave or who couldn't be here today. The question is, would day as a variable be categorical ordinal, or would it just be numerical continuous? Why? Well, here's how I actually think about this question. When I've got a column of numbers in a data set, so here I am in the day column, and I'm looking at a column of numbers, and we had a quiz on this that took 3 minutes like a week or two ago, so I don't expect you to remember my little idea without it coming up again when it's useful, like now. There's a column full of numbers. If I want to just get the basic idea, are they categorical or are they numerical? My first question is, would I ever take the average? Those are days of the month. Would I ever take the average? It's always going to be 15 and a half. Who cares? Who cares?
Maybe it's not.
Well, if there was an interesting setting where I'm in 1 month and like the average time that it had happened during that 1 month, if there was a specific reason I might, but here, this is 1,000+ events that took place all through that year on pretty much well, sadly and horrifically, most days of the year. It's just going to be an average of like 15 and a half, and I really don't care. So that puts me in the categorical side. And then I just ask, well, is the order meaningful in any possible way? Well, this is the 15th of January. Today's our day, 15. What's tomorrow? The 16th, right? The 17th. Hey, hear those little sounds on the numbers? Oomph, oomph, the first. They're not just counting the days, they're ordering them. The January 1st is the first day of the month. The 2nd is the next day. The 3rd is the next day. The day labels of the month's days are what order the days are in. And they're numbers, but they're ordinal descriptors of the order of the days. It's like the same thing as firstborn, secondborn, thirdborn. Whenever you're using those ordinal erst, ekend, yeah. Dante and Tanaya both have a question or a comment. Go ahead.
So then the same premise with the year, categorical or.
Yep, and if you didn't hear Tanaya's comment on the mic, same thinking applies to the calendar year. 2016 is the 2016th year of what historians call the Common Era, kind of an arbitrary place to start counting. It's this year. Next year's 2000, sorry, the following year was 2017, etc. So full on, ordinal, ordinal, ordinal. Oh, and Finn, you had the same good follow-up question. Very good. And to sum it up in the chat, I'm just going to type calendar dates are ordinal data. Ordering events. Yeah. Great. Let me just mute this.
And let's date.
remember when I settled this all in, I said, hey, and when you get to this last task, when your group gets there, down here at task 1-4, just let me know, because that'll save us explaining it before anybody gets started and saving the explanation be forgotten, half an hour later. Well, here we are, about a half an hour later. Not every group is here yet, and that's normal. Everyone has their own working style and speed, but just, wherever you are in the work, zoom in here with us and I'll explain this slightly better. Okay, statistical questions are questions whose answers may be considered using proportions, probabilities, relationships, and averages, or what statisticians call means from data sets. Now that you've read about the counted project and you're familiar, like when you typed out all the variables into categorical mostly, some ordinal ones, and I think, how many numerical variables are there here? Those who've looked? Yeah, just one, right? So that's a hint. If you haven't typed them out yet, you shouldn't get more than one numerical variable on this list. But now that you've seen all these variables, you might have been thinking questions about like, hey, where did most of these cases happen geographically? Wait, how do those classifications actually break down? They're not all death by gunshot. How do these armed statuses, there's lots of different types. How do they compare maybe to the gender or to the race ethnicity of the people involved, the people whose lives were lost in these events? Those are all data-based statistical questions. Anytime you're looking at this data set and you think, what about this? You're asking a data-based question. It doesn't necessarily have to be one that you could only use this data to answer. Maybe you want to know about a relationship to something here to outside the data set. That's every bit as valid. Here you're supposed to be asking the first 2 or 3 questions that come to mind, whether or not we have the tools to answer them today. Does that make sense? So just the first 2 or 3 questions about the average of this, what proportion of that, a relationship between this and the other, and you're thinking statistically in terms of a data set. If you're curious, hey, I wish there was a variable here that's not here, that's a great question too, because it just gives you an idea of the critical questions that researchers ask as they get into their work. Clear to most folks, especially Nolan, who asked me originally? Yeah, does that help? Yeah, great. Okay, and remember, no need to answer your questions. They're to be asked, and if we're lucky, we'll learn some of the techniques that will allow you to answer many of them during the quarter. Or we will be lucky. We'll be able to answer lots of them during the quarter. I am back at the seeing your chats zone. Can we also discuss 1.3? Of course, direct messenger.
It's 1.1.3. The question
Oh, wait, I can't hear you. Hold
was,
on. Go ahead.
It is 1.1.3.
1.1.3.
Yeah, after reading about the counted, what questions do you have about these data?
Oh, yeah, so that's, once you're clear about how the Guardian's journalists set up this project and what work they've done, any, like, the first 1 or 2 or 3 questions that come to mind, anything about the project or its context is fair game here. Lots of people, when they respond to this, have questions about the data gathering process, about the crowdsourcing idea, and various other concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. And oh, oh, go ahead, Maria. Good people of the Zoom world, many of the folks in class are starting to wrap up their work, though I'm of course here for about 15 more minutes for questions, comments, and ideas. If there's anything we didn't get to discuss, or maybe you remember me mentioning something, but it wasn't what you were focused on, feel free to ask. We've got about 15 more minutes. And if I don't hear from you, have a terrific week. Have a wonderful day off on Monday. Again, if you can get out into the streets and support racial justice for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, that would be the #1 activity. Yeah, and I've got a question in the room. What's that? Oh, I'll leave the mic on. They're hidden until you upload. So here, have you uploaded your work yet?
No.
Upload it. And then I'll show you.
To the
Yeah, exactly. I'll do the same thing up here quietly and then I can show everybody. Someone thoughtfully asked, where do we see the key? You have to upload first. So this is the one time I'll upload something to assignments. It'll start pretty boring, video wise. I'm heading to coursework, assignments. The upload I'm making is terrible. I wrote nothing on my copy. I would write myself back a note saying, hey, you didn't upload your work if I was a student. But there's lab 1 data. Cool.
submitted it.
Yeah, watch me. I'm just going to show this to everybody. Lab 1 data. Someone in the class just submitted it. I'm just copying them so I can show everyone. Add a file. It's coming from my Google Drive. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Let's just search by my nice little phrase, winter 2025, that I put at the beginning of the name of my doc. Goodness gracious, there's all this garbage, but that's my copy. Upload. Lovely, it turns it into a doc from the Google Drive and it works. Okay, I submit that if I had any questions for myself, is I would put them in the comments bin. And now that I've submitted my file, I can go back into content. When I go back down to lab, look there, keys to labs, bonus. You get a little bonus zone when you pop that open. Now there's part one key, data in the submodule, keys to labs. Each time you submit one of the parts, its solutions pop up on the key right there. So there you go. Great question. And a fitting end for this chunk of our microphone stuff.
We have fun.
We have an abandoned cup.
And the, computer's still on. Oh, that's my water bottle. And it's my one over there.
Abandoned.
Just restart this one a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you can sign out of my, my.
I just hit a restart
Um,
the fast way. Well, the ones, so it's, the next class. What I do with my computer when I'm done with class.
so classification will also be kind of more notable. Law enforcement agency.
Playlist updated. Video saved properly. See you, Chanel. Have a good one. You're welcome. Have a great week.
That's pretty well. Yeah, I mean, extreme heat kind of gets to me a little bit, but. You know, for like the cold and stuff, my body is just like. There are ways you can warm up.
Right.
You know, as long as I. From my experience, as long as I keep my hands and my feet warm, the rest of my body is generally warm.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you have to do much desert?
um,
You have to spend time in the desert?
a little bit.
Yeah.
I,
That can be pretty brutal heat over there, right?
yeah, that highest I've seen was 125,
That's pretty high.
so,
Yeah, that can cause problems pretty quick.
yeah. Yep. And they had, so like I deployed to Iraq and, you know, on the base, they had water everywhere.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it was hot.
Oh, right, because it's just hot pipes.
Well, no, they had water bottles laying everywhere,
Okay.
like in crates, so
Oh,
they
I see.
weren't super far away.
Just packaged water?
It was basically just packaged water in crates, you know, sitting around the base.
So you're drinking hot water to stay cool?
Yep,
Yeah, that sucks.
so it was something that you had to get used to.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you're drinking the hot water, your body reacts better to the hot water instead of the cold water.
Right, because it
So-
doesn't have to make the temperature change.
Yeah, so basically, if you drink cold water, especially in that hot of a day, it creates shock. So you're not trying to get shocked, you're just trying to keep your body going, keep the water going. So you gotta be careful.
For yourself.